Okay, we're at the open meeting portion of the meeting. You may proceed, Ethan and Catherine.
Thank you. We're going to designate Deputy General Counsel Christopher Hammer as the recording secretary. The board's Director of Annual Disclosure, Catherine Miller, is going to provide some introductory remarks about this proposed rulemaking, and then we'll open it up to a discussion. So, Catherine.
Thanks, Ethan. Today, the board is considering proposed amendments to Board Rules Section 404 regarding contract filers. Under the city's annual disclosure law, public servants with certain duties related to contracts and other significant city matters, like franchises and zoning, are required to file financial disclosure reports with the board. The proposed amendment would repeal and replace the existing rule to refine and clarify the duties that trigger that filing requirement. Specifically, the new rule would describe with a greater particularity those duties tied directly to the specific matters listed in the annual disclosure law, and also include a list of certain tasks that by themselves would not trigger the filing requirement.
So I had a concern that it doesn't nail the thing that we were concerned that people who are just recommenders up the line think they are being designated as contract filers, and it sort of, I don't think it speaks to that very clearly, that we're not interested in somebody who, you know, recommends it to the final decision maker. We want it should be the final decision maker. It might be a drafting issue. And my second concern was micro purchases. I don't understand why we are eliminating the requirement that people who can make decisions about micro purchasing not be required to file. That's an area that has been prone to scandal. In fact, NYCHA had one last year about people just getting kickback for micro purchases or giving their family members micro purchase.
Splitting up larger purchases into
Right. So
pieces below. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know why we would do that.
I'll start with the micro purchases. Since this rule is requiring public servants to file, we wanted to kind of annual financial disclosure reports. We wanted to balance, the need for transparency with the requirement to disclose personal financial information, and in drafting this rule, trying to focus on those public servants who are making significant decisions for how the city spends its money. And so thought that by excluding micro purchases, it's a smaller dollar amount, and so not as significant as other larger contracts, and also recognizing that perhaps it seems the purpose of the annual disclosure requirement is to think about your conflicts and your financial interests and how those might impact your work, and also for the board to review for potential conflicts. And it doesn't seem like the kind of scandal we've seen with the micro purchases would really be captured through the annual disclosure report, because it seems unlikely that such
People don't
things
report
would be
kickbacks.
No, they don't
It's
report
the same
kickbacks,
reason
but we
why
find out about them anyway.
It's the same reason why I think the annual disclosure law doesn't require all building inspectors to report. And
Right.
people seem to think that building inspectors are
Easily bribed.
and maybe even regularly. I think it's a good point, but I think I come out on balance that because the law is not meant to capture potential criminals, and plenty of these people were petty crooks, right? But really conflicts, and what are they going to disclose that would reveal that they've got a relationship with somebody, an illicit relationship with somebody that they've been taken advantage of. They don't have a reportable relationship with these vendors.
Well, they might, because the vendor might be my brother-in-law, that I keep sending all of my micro purchases.
Then everybody ought to file, right? Everybody ought to file.
But you were the one that pointed out that you can break up the large
no,
contracts into
they're-
micro purchases, and you can also, and the micro purchases add up. And we have found violations of people who take $20 gift cards, so that the fact that it's a small amount doesn't really sell me. A violation's a violation. Will we find out? Well, why do we have anybody file a report? We wanna know what their connections are, what they're associated with. Do they have debt? All of these things are relevant to, potential problems in the future, so I'm just not comfortable with eliminating the micro purchase decision makers from the group.
I think also, like, having worked in a position for the city where micro purchasing, like, that was part of my role, you could also designate it to someone else. So the argument is that individuals who have the authority to do micro purchasing, or if some of the thought process was that it's for like individuals that are not necessarily managing larger contracts. It definitely depends on the office. It depends on, like, you know, a deputy may decide that, like, their senior, you know, advisor is the one that's gonna do it, or somebody that comes in, or if you want somebody to get experience on how to do, support for like smaller nonprofit organizations and micro purchase. So I just highlight that as like something to think about as far as like who the individuals are that are doing micro purchasing within city agencies are often designated that role from somebody higher up, or in theory, it could be somebody that is still doing like a really important job, even if they're not like a higher position. That said, I think like two things can be true at the same time to you know, to the point of the amount shouldn't matter, I agree, but also the fact that the annual disclosure is not meant to, I think on the bigger things of what it's trying to catch, I don't know if it rises to the level of catching a recipient of a micro purchase. That's actually, like, somebody would have to be like, yes, I received this 500, and in fact, I think some of the questions in the annual disclosure prohibit, or not prohibit, but you don't have to disclose certain lower amounts, right? Like if your account is below X, or if you received an amount below 500, or whatever it is, like you don't even have to report that. So there, in theory, people could have received a micro purchase for $500. According to the annual disclosure, they don't even have to report that. So I don't know if it rises to the.
Yeah, but you could get a whistleblower saying, Wayne
But
is giving his brother-in-law all of the
that's-
micro purchases out of this building. Then we
That's
look up whether
different.
Wayne has reported his brother-in-law as being a vendor.
Right, but he wouldn't report his
Oh, he
own
wouldn't
report
report.
brother-in-law.
Yeah, exactly. We would find it a different way, but it
yeah.
wouldn't be through
Correct.
the
Who-
disclosure.
This is an exclusion, and unlike the other exclusion that caught my eye, which I think is absolutely right, the people who draft the procurement policy rules, if that's all they do, they don't file. But right now, what do micro purchasers do? Do they file it and not file? What if somebody came to you and said, should I file? I do a dozen micro purchases a year, I do 1,000 micro purchases a year. What's the answer? Do they file now? Or should they be filing now?
Under the current rule, yes.
Do you have any
Yes.
idea whether anybody is?
I don't know.
And I'm kind of, it's kind of a general point, is do you think with respect to these changes as a whole, there's gonna be somewhat fewer filers, somewhat more, or if there were micro purchases involved, and it was explicitly said, a lot more? Because it seems to me like, I'm guessing that there's a lot of these purchasing cards out there, right? It's like a charge card, yeah? You can go to the stationery store and buy stuff, yeah?
For micro purchase,
Yeah.
like once a recipient of it,
Yeah.
it depends, like oftentimes, it could be a check that's like wired to an account. It's not always in the form of like a gift card or anything like
Or
that.
a credit card.
It can be a
Like
credit
it's not
card.
a DCAS credit card or anything like that.
Yeah,
It
and
could
some
be-
people are like,
I'm just
Some
wondering, I'm wondering
people-
about volume here.
Yeah,
Just
like-
open it up for thousands more people filing.
I see.
Has to be thousands of
Yeah.
people.
There
Has to be,
are
even
thousands.
at like the Department of Education, they're not a huge agency that has a ton of filers.
Right,
But
so-
there's people who are buying stuff for DOE all the time, and I
Right.
don't think DOE is designating as contract filers.
Right, I think every
Fair.
principal has P
Right.
card as well.
Yeah.
Right, everybody, right. Many people at DOE have these procurement cards.
But are likely not filing right now.
They can't possibly be filing, or else we'd have, right,
Right, oh, there'd be more filers.
there'll be more filers.
So what you're really, I think, here's the distinction, I'm thinking back to my,
I'm just concerned about the credit card.
the philosopher on this stuff, Mark Davies, who's a longtime executive director, would say, we're not a criminal investigative agency. We're not out setting traps for
Right.
P card filers. We're looking for conflicts of interest, and nobody's gonna report crimes on their bribes received.
No, they don't now.
kickbacks, I think our shared concern about people taking any kind of kickback is not gonna be
Enlightened by.
by requirement these people are gonna file, if we did adopt a position that they ought to file, we ought to say it, and then we'd be, it's like, be careful what you wish for, because a couple thousand more for,
At least.
and I gotta believe that 95% of them or more are not doing anything wrong at all, doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and there's some rascals out there, or people just, tempted to take a few bucks, whatever they can.
It seems from what you're saying, and I think I tend to agree with you, is that the filing won't really assist in our role of finding conflicts.
Exactly.
And that's why I think it's an okay thing. That's why I support it.
You convinced me that the filing won't help, so. Okay.
Okay.
What about
And you're,
the recommender issue? It doesn't really help you with the recommender.
so those who, and just to understand the concern, so we've tried to focus with regards to procurement and concessions on the certain tasks list here, which would not include recommending.
But it currently doesn't include recommending, and we get agencies adding recommenders to the list all the time, so I
Right.
guess it's an education piece.
Exactly, so by not including it in the list of duties here, that would open, we'd have the opportunity to review this and discuss it with agencies and, exclude those individuals.
We're not interested in people who just recommend,
But
Right.
what is a recommender? If you're on a selection committee,
and that person's included.
But that part, yeah.
and isn't that just a recommendation? I mean, that's right, he got the recommendation, he gave it to the other building.
I'm thinking of the two examples that were used in our memo, where there was somebody who recommended a settlement to her supervisor, who then recommended to the controller. I mean, that person down here, or the general counsel, or the deputy general counsel, who reviews things for
Right,
the
so-
boss and says, I think you can approve this. It's the boss we want.
Yeah, so, the proposed rule doesn't include settlements. So those individuals wouldn't fall under this rule.
They don't now.
And now they will hopefully, that's one of our goals, is hopefully this would make it more clear that,
Yeah, I just
They
didn't
should
think it
not be
was
included.
clear. I knew that was the intent, but I didn't think it was clear. that
Could be
that's-
added to the B section.
an option could be to included in the list
Of
of
people not,
tasks
Right.
that don't trigger the
Who-
filing.
yeah, it's just something in there that people who recommend the 1 through 7 above are not.
Right, right.
I got a nit and then a more global thing. I guess I'm gonna raise a global thing, but the nit is just on the bottom of the draft. It's the page 5 of 5. At the very bottom, providing legal advice regarding the determination of the contracts. I might just shift that, the V contracts to A contracts, and likewise on the next line, shift the A contract to B contract. That's clear.
Yep.
Yeah, but more generally, and I gotta say, I salute staff for digging deep into all of these and distinguishing among these various kinds of, I call them all contractual relationships of a form. What's our level of confidence about breaking these down in separate forms? I mean, I'm guessing we got a relatively high degree of confidence because we talked to a lot of people. Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah, staff did quite a bit of, both traditional legal research and also talking to the people who know how these things actually work. Yeah, to try to make sure that we that we understood it and that we were writing a rule that makes sense. Obviously, in the rulemaking process, we can again reach out to, once there's a draft out there, for people to take a look at that. And
without calling and firing your own position, I'd recommend encouraging people who some of you may have already talked to, some of whom their identities occurred to you now. I'd say, hey, come on in, and we welcome comments. We welcome you. Somebody come into one of these hearings. Actually, that would be neat, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm reminded of this is before my time, but the city planning rule. Lots of, and the board, I think, had some big hearing in the early 90s, and a lot of people showed. I don't know if it was part of the rulemaking, pre-rulemaking, and I don't think you need anything quite like that. But because what I'm concerned about is this looks great now, and then we're sitting here, our future board is sitting here, and people come in and say, how could you be making me file it, or differently, why isn't this person filing? And we're going, well, we should have thought of that. But beyond that, nice work. Thank you.
So I guess, Milt, if you wouldn't mind calling a vote for this?
Okay, a vote on this resolution.
All in favor, maybe we can just do it that way. It seems like we have
fine.
an agreement.
Just
Okay.
so that we
Or
are-
sorry.
Right, with the edit. We
With
have
the,
to
oh,
put
sorry,
the
yeah,
edit.
with
Adding
the edit.
recommended.
We're gonna,
Right, so
And-
let's, I
and
think
B.
we should just bring it back.
Okay, you want to redraft that edit and then?
No, yeah.
Okay, we'll draft that edit, we'll bring it back. Okay,
So this will be for the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.